Hello, everybody. How you living? I am DLR, the host of the 1090 podcast. Here, we strive to share our life experiences and knowledge with the people by supporting our community and helping others enhance their personal and professional growth. Our guest today is the Zachary David Rogers. Sir, how you living, sir?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Thank you for having me today.
All right. We believe in acknowledging our people's accomplishments for those that's putting in their work every day, trying to help the people build communities. If everybody understands the word of community, know what I'm talking about. So we're going to read your bio because I think it's important everybody hears this information to acknowledge your work. So Zachary Rogers is from Germantown, Maryland, and he has over 9 years of experience in higher education. Currently, he is one of the associate directors of admission at Delaware State University. Along with working in the Office of Admissions, Zachary teaches English 101 in various communication courses. He also is a sports writer for Fansided and loves the WNBA, which stands for Women's National Basketball Association. Mr. Rogers is a huge sneaker fanatic and loves giving back to the community. He received his master's degree in contemporary communication from Notre Dame of Maryland University. The Contemporary Communication Program has equipped Mr. Rogers with skills in organization communication, social media management, event planning. Zach received his undergraduate degree in history from Morgan State University. He is well versed in communicating with others and has a passion to serve in multiple capacities. He has an aspiration to become a full-time sports writer and professor. In addition to teaching, he would like to become an advocate for the student population. Zachary has a strong passion for mentoring students, whether it's through coaching, teaching, or advising. He is creative and loves to inspire others through integrated media, presentation, and writing. Zachary believes that it is imperative to empower, energize, and motivate students to achieve their goals while instilling a sense of academic pride. Woo! I'm motivated already with that bio. Good information, sir. You've been putting in a lot of work there.
Oh,
So
God is good.
we're gonna have this conversation. We're gonna try to keep it casual. So Zach, I was looking through my notes and I noticed in your bio you said Maryland, but in my notes it says you was born in Puerto Rico. How in the world did you get from Puerto Rico to Maryland?
Uh, after my parents left, after my parents left Puerto Rico, I believe we went to Virginia. Then after Virginia, I did end up in Maryland, and most of my adolescence occurred in Germantown. I know I went K through, I want to say I K through seventh, K kindergarten all the way till seventh grade. Then I moved to North Carolina, Camp Lejeune for a year. Then no, eighth grade. And then I came back my senior year. I mean, no, my freshman year in high school, and I was in Clarksburg from ninth grade to 12th grade until I went to college in Baltimore, Maryland. So I ended up in Maryland via way of military transition, so to speak.
Okay, so you was a military brat then. Okay,
Yes, I was a military brat.
yeah. And when you said North Carolina, you was at Camp Lejeune.
Correct. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's one of the biggest bases there. Yeah, I'm familiar with Camp Lejeune. Being a Marine, I'm familiar with Camp Lejeune. All
Thank
right.
you for your service.
Yeah, that's deep right there. That's amazing. From Puerto Rico to Maryland. All right. So being on looking at my notes and knowing you a little bit, I know that you have two parents. One is from deep in the country called Roxborough, North Carolina. You got one from Pennsylvania, from Philly. How in the world does it feel to have a parent that's from one from the South and one from the North? What was that experience like?
It was very interesting. The thought process and ideologies between the two, you and my mom. It was very interesting because looking back on it now, you can kind of see the countryside from you as far as like the importance of faith, the importance of hard work, the importance of just building, I guess, community. And then not to say that my mom's side didn't have that, but then you kind of see the fast thought process, to go out and get it, the grind mentality. Both sides have it, but it was interesting to see how you both went about it in your own specific dynamics. So it was interesting to see both thought processes. It was an adventure. I definitely took a lot of gems from both sides, and I definitely learned. And it's funny because growing up, I was in a majority of, you know, the North. I was in the North most of the time, and then now as I get older, I kind of want to go back down south, whether it's Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't know about Atlanta. Atlanta's a little too overcapacitated for me, but so it's interesting.
Well, based on your time, because you're 32, right?
Yes.
So based on when you was going to Philly and North Carolina in your adolescent, your teenage years, and now you go in your 20s and your 30s, do you see a difference in the change of the people, anything, or is it the same?
When you say
As far
people,
as
you
like,
mean like
as far as like how people respect each other, interact with each other, the danger, is it the same, or is no difference from you as an adolescent to being an adult?
oh no, it's definitely different. I definitely appreciate the cultural and moral values that you both instilled in me. I think the level of respect has definitely went down. So a lot of things that would have been acceptable culturally back then is now not, which is unfortunate because not saying everything back then was right, as far as like just society, but now it's a little bit different. There's a lot of less respect. There's not a lot of community, or if there is, it's just a lot of hoops that you have to go through. So I would say a lot has changed, some good and some bad. It's unfortunate because you just a lot of things as far as just hanging out on the patio. Everybody, it's either you're spending money or you're not having fun, which is a bad myth to kind of follow by. So some good things did change, and I do see a lot of changes on the good side and the bad side.
Okay, that's good. In my time, in my jobs, in my travels, I meet a lot of people that have single home parents, either whether they live with the mother or they live with the father. So I know that when you were 9 years old, your parents separated, and
Hmm.
and your mom moved to Maryland. So how was that time for you, and how did you make it through and not become a statistic of the streets? And what I mean by statistic of the streets, most of our black males hang in the streets, they start following the wrong crowd, getting a criminal record, things like that. How did you make it through that time and not end up as a statistic in the streets?
I think even though I don't like the term, but it is what it is. But even though I was in a single parent household, you two, I did, obviously I wasn't a part of all the conversations, but you two did a good job of communicating, and it was always instilled at an early age. If I'm not every other weekend, if I'm not at my mom's house, I'm at your house, or if we don't go to your house, you come to us. And then y'all would switch off. So like that was one thing. I mean, obviously the separation did kind of suck. And I kind of grew up through a time where you don't ask questions. You're a child, stay in a child's place. And then now it's kind of interesting when Dorian, my little brother, he kind of grew up and then things kind of changed and he got the explanations that I didn't. So that I'm not gonna lie, those were kind of as I grew up, I was kind of like, huh. But I would say I avoided being a statistic because of the places that I lived in. When I was in I don't really remember Virginia, I'm not gonna lie to you, but I know I was there. When I got to Maryland, it was a lot of diversity. Maryland is very diverse, but when you look at the school systems and things of that nature in Montgomery County public schools, it's diverse, but it comes with a statistical value, so to speak, testing. And you still kind of see the microaggressions, but that's another story for another day. But I was just in a good environment, and then also I was raised what respect was and what it wasn't. And, you working in corrections, I knew the result of a lot of things would end up in jail. And then the times where I did kind of do things that a kid would do that I shouldn't have done. Like I never forget that one time where we threw that mulch at that one person's patio and I got in trouble. And he were like, well, where are your friends at now? That kind of things like that really kind of shaped my eye. And it was just like, nobody has time to be grounded all the time. And then the reality as you get older, of sitting in a cell, yeah, nobody wants to. I personally don't want to do that. I can't speak to other people, but those are some of the kind of things. Just having the freedoms of life and
Absolutely.
just the lessons that were kind of set and the things that I went through as a child, lesson wise, helped me stay
Absolutely.
out of the streets. And I'm too lazy for all that.
Absolutely. And I follow what you're saying because as a parent, it's and I tell people this all the time. When you're a parent and you're the first child, so it's not like you go to Walmart or go to Amazon and buy a book and say this is how you raise a
Right.
child. Well, you can buy a book, but the child is not in the book. So there's a lot of things that just like you said, Dorian was the second one. So the parents learn from the first child things to do and not to do. Plus, your brother asks a lot of questions. I mean, before this one there, he had a thesis wrote no questions he was going to. But and I feel you because I'm the oldest child too, and I could see things like when I was growing up, I had to wash the dishes, I had to do everything cut the grass and everything because I was the oldest. Then when I got my sisters came, the chores got divided up where they did some things and I didn't do something. So I feel that. All right, but that's deep. Feel for that. All right. So you went to a HBCU and then you decided you wanted to get your master's from a PWI. So what do you feel was the difference and what is one experience you added to your life kit from both of those types of colleges?
It's funny. Growing up in high school, I really wanted to play basketball in college, but honestly, I wouldn't. Personally, I think I could have played a D3 or a D2, but I didn't know the ins and outs of that. And then when you grow up, you see nothing but Power 500 schools. I was a huge Duke fan. I really love basketball, but it just wasn't in the cards. And to be honest, when I was going through the school system in Montgomery County, they used to try to put IEPs on me, say that I had a special learning accommodation. But the fact of the matter is, I just never applied myself. And I look back at it now, especially being a professor, and I know it's nothing but God, but to be honest, those are the kind of the microaggressions and the underlying things that I didn't like about the school system in Montgomery County. Not to take anything away from them, they're an overall good school system, but sometimes they didn't have teachers and professors or teachers that looked like me and could relate to me. So I'm automatically going to shut down. When I think of all the teachers that I've had from a K through 12 perspective, I only had Mr. Muhammad,
Mhm.
Mr. Seymour, and Mr. Wells, but unfortunately, I don't count Mr. Wells, not because he obviously he was African American and or black. I'm not, but he was a gym teacher, and that was a symbol or a colloquialism of, okay, we expect black people to be gym teachers because it has something to do with athletics.
Absolutely.
But realistically, I only had four Miss Mans too. And again, I always say it's funny how God works because I didn't know this until later. I was terrible at math. You could look at all my report cards. I had B's in like just about everything, but it was always math that would either be sink or swim. And I never forget there was this one lady named Miss Mans, and she was black. And later on, I found out she went to North Carolina A&T, which is the number one or number two HBCU in America right now. And the way she taught math, she was just so engaging. She was so energetic. She would figure out your language, and I got a B in her class. And I hate math, and I was terrible at math. But if I got a B in her class, it made me think that certain teachers. Now, don't get me wrong, I was a jerk in some of my classes, but to be told that you're an IEP and then sit there and hear your parents tell you, "Oh, you could do better. You're not applying yourself." Then your mom crying on the phone, but then you're just not really in it. But then there wasn't a lot of college readiness that was happening in K through 12. So like being being an admissions counselor, realistically, your college journey starts your freshman year. You do good your freshman year, sophomore year. Obviously, you do good all 4 years, but you pad freshman, so you'll be good the rest of the way. But then, realistically, your junior year, you're supposed to start really like in the sophomore year. You're supposed to start like gauging what you want to do college wise, or if you want to do it. Then junior year, you're really preparing and you're starting to apply at the end. And then senior year, you really should be coasting and waiting for your applications. But when I talked to my college and career service specialist at high school, she said, "Oh, you can't get in a College Park, you can't get in a Salisbury. It's probably either community college or the military." I know y'all both were in the military, and then unfortunately, America does a disservice sometimes to the military because all they do is brand the war. They don't say, "Oh, you can go into the military, be a doctor, you could be a IT tech, you could be a photographer, you could be a chaplain." They don't say all that. You kind of, if you do your research, you'll find that. But the way that the army or any military branch is always promoted, it's always war, it's always the guns, like, but that's not all the military does. So had I been informed, that may have been an option, but I kind of felt like I was casted to the side. So when I realized I wasn't playing basketball, and then when I realized I was applying to North Carolina State, I was applying to Chapel Hill, I was applying to Duke, I was applying to Towson, I was applying to Maryland, didn't get into any of those colleges. And for me, and I think the stigma still kind of holds, there's a stigma towards community colleges. If you go to community college, it's the 13th grade, or you're a dummy. But in fact, you're not. One, you can get your associates. Two, you could save money, or you can go for 2 years and then transfer to another school and then get a scholarship and then not be in debt. But that pitch wasn't provided in high school. So of course I'm gonna turn my nose up at community college.
Mhm.
Um, so honestly, my pride, I was like, I'm not going to a community college. I have to get out of this house. So I literally applied. I was like, I'd stumbled upon Morgan, and I applied to Morgan and Hampton. I knew they were HBCUs, but I didn't really do all my research in HBCUs. I got into Morgan and I got into Hampton, but Hampton was like, we need you to do a summer program. For those who don't know, Hampton's another HBCU in the Tidewater area. Shout out to the Pirates. And shout out to my Bears. So Hampton was basically like, you have to do a summer program and you get to go to Kings Dominion. I'm like, my dad lives 15, 20 minutes from Kings Dominion. It doesn't really sell me. So if you talk to my mom to this day, she'll deny it. But I legit was like, Mom, I was actually going to go to Hampton. I was like, Mom, I'm going to Hampton. She was like, Zach, I can't afford it. But if you talk to her today, she'd be like, Zach, I never said that. We would have figured it out. But I ended up going to Morgan and it just transformed my life. Anybody who knows me, I'm super passionate about my Bears and I'll argue you to the T. Because it morphed me into a better man. I grew up sheltered. I have no problem admitting that. But as I got older, I wanted to branch off. But sometimes my mom kind of took it as disrespectful. I'm like, Mom, let me figure it out. When all I meant was let me figure it out. Could my wording been a little bit different? Absolutely. But when I get to Morgan, a lot of people make a joke that it's in the hood. It's really not in the hood. We're just in a bubble. And if you go out to the wrong street, you're in the hood. But if you think about it, Johns Hopkins, one of the best medical schools in the world, they're in the hood. It's just redline from, it's redline from, I mean, obviously you go through slavery, Reconstruction, all that. So you could be in the hood in Johns Hopkins in a minute, Loyola, all that. So I get to Morgan, I never forget, and I ended up running into my best friend, Ron. So to be honest, once I went to the summer academy and I went to Morgan, I was like, this is it for me. Obviously every school has its thing, but the good so far, it outweighs the bad so much. Like that school is amazing. It morphed me into who I am today. It gave me the confidence. It gave me my ambition. It gave me, their motto is growing the future, leading the world. And I feel like I became a better leader, leaving Morgan and a better man. Obviously, I'm not perfect. I have a lot of stuff I need to work on and want to work on. But that was just a community. That was a school. Like it was family. Like, yeah. So that's how I ended up in Morgan.
Okay.
And then to answer your second question, I'm sorry. I went to, it's a 50-50 slope. So I ended up going to Notre Dame in Maryland because I knew I wanted to be a sports journalist or something in sports, and everybody knew that. I really wanted to stay at Morgan and do journalism, but they didn't have the program. So I was like, all right, let me go to a PWI so I can prove to myself that I can thrive at a predominantly white institution, which I think is stupid now. But, at the time, that was my mindset. And Dr. Palmer, who was my department chair at Morgan, she always used to say, do not get caught up in presentism. Absolutely. Thinking how things should have been back then when you only have the vantage point of right now. So I start the program at Notre Dame of Maryland, and legit, probably after the first semester, Morgan then opens up their journalism program, and I was just like, ugh. But for me, I didn't know what it looked like to transfer from grad school, and I didn't know if you could do that. And it's like I already started the program. I'm not about to just switch. So that's how I ended up in Morgan, and then that's how I ended up in Notre Dame. Sorry to cut you off.
Okay, and that's what we talk about, that life kit. I mean, you gave me like 20 examples, but for Morgan, based on what you said, it taught you how to, first of all, understand culture and understand how to become a man on your own. And that toolbox going to PWI because you just had that perception of just what a HBCU does. So that's that diversity. And I often say this with, and I believe in God, so I believe God puts us in seasons. When you walk by faith, you don't even realize what season you're in, but He's preparing you for something else. And I like what you said when you was in school, how the teachers was putting you in a certain category, and I laugh at that because in my job now, I'm a trainer, and I talk to a lot of colleges, and schools got this script, whether it's for SOLs or whatever, they just pertain to you to prepare for this. But they don't have that they don't base it on all different groups of people. It's only based on certain groups of people. So of course, if that's not your group of people, you're not going to be in that kit, and they don't supply the right resources like books and things like that to the people. So, but I see how he put you in different seasons. I laugh about I heard you say you used to be a Duke fan. What happened with that?
To be honest with you, he will never let me live it down. One of my role models and mentors is Professor Milton Kent. Right before I was about to graduate, Morgan, my advisor, Dr. Berliner, shout out to Dr. Berliner and Mr. Kent. He basically was like, Zach, you could take 2 classes, which would be 6 credits of free electives. And I'm like, free electives? I was like, so I could take anything. He was like, anything. So I'm looking through the catalog, and this is before like electronics really started. I mean, obviously it was on the website, but Dr. Berliner, he was a history, like that was a specialty, European history. So he always had papers, scrolls, anything you name it. So we're looking through. So he had the catalog in print. So I'm like, sports journalism, fashion and magazine writing, and I lied to you not. I get into Professor Kent's class, and in history majors, you write in MLA format, which is like 5 to 6 sentences a paragraph.
Right.
AP is 32 to 50 words, which is really 2 sentences.
Wow.
So I wrote this paper. It was whether or not flag football and the safety precautions of it. And I lied to you, I thought I wrote the best thing ever. I get to I get my paper back. I got a D. I was like, what in the world is this? So I go to Professor Kent. He's like, Zach, this is the worst paper I've ever read. He said, I don't even know how you got in my class. He was like, he just ripped me a new one. And he probably said it in 50 different ways how terrible it was. But me, I was like, okay, Professor Kent, what do I have to do to get an A? He was like, all right, stop by my office and we'll work on your craft. Da 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 da. Because in reality, yeah, that sounded harsh, but he was right. I wasn't supposed to be able to take that class without taking intro to communication and writing. But again, God always does things funny. So I ended up going to his office every day. He had office hours. He didn't think I was going to come, but I came there every day. And at the end of the class, he was like, Zach, you could really be you could really be a sports journalist, a good one. And I was like, all right. But then when he found out, I think it was like probably the second or third class, he found out that I liked Duke, and he was like, "Oh God," because he went to College Park, he went to Maryland. So at that time he was not. He was like, "Zach, I like you, but why? Like that is the one bad thing about you." But in all seriousness, though, I kind of stopped rooting for Duke. There were a few moves in the program that I didn't really agree with, and then when you really look at the history of Duke, I was like, I can't really go for this anymore. So I kind of separated. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Yeah, because it's in North Carolina for a reason. We just leave it at that.
Yep.
All right, that's good. That's good stuff. All right, so me, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I have an associate's degree in business management. So I heard you say earlier about people give a bad name to community college. I think community college is a good thing because everybody and I personal training aside, I have a lot of students that went to college and they tell me, they say, well, man, I was in college. I really didn't want to be there. I got a degree, I don't have a job, and I just wasted my parents' money. I'm like, well, why wouldn't you get a job in a degree? I didn't really want to go. It was just because the family was telling me. So my question is, you have taught at a community college level and you taught at a major university level. Do you feel a college degree helps a person be successful in life?
I haven't taught at a community college yet, but thank you for speaking that into existence.
What was Strayer? What is Strayer considered?
Strayer's a for-profit, but they're a university, for-profit university.
Okay, my bad.
Your question was, do I think that college is necessary? I'm sorry.
Yes. Do you feel a person that helps a person be successful in life having a college degree?
No, I don't think that's the end all be all. Unfortunately, some pioneer in 1776 decided that education was needed. Don't get me wrong. Do I think education is needed? Yes, but I think we lose value in the other aspects that you can do, whether it's vocational, whether it's certification. Think about it. I work in education and I want to be a sports writer, but people that do HVAC, they're making well over 6 figures if they have their own business. Electricians, like them, even if you don't have your own business, you're making more. It's just, again, those are stereotypes and jobs that unfortunately it gets a bad rep. But I don't think you have to go to college to be successful. I just think you need to have a plan. Like when I used to work in admissions, I used to get really frustrated, and shout out to my friend Lamar. I used to get really frustrated because when we would go to these college fairs, there were some counselors, not all high school counselors, they would basically, if a student's like, I'm not going to college, they would kind of shame them. But
wow.
Or if you look at some of the colleges that were recruiting, they would discourage them, like, why don't you want to go to college? But the fact of the matter is, I used to tell them, okay, so what specialization are you going to do? Okay, I want to be an entrepreneur. Okay, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, what are your steps? Do you have your outlines together? If you're doing HVAC, have you signed up for your certificate? If you're doing real estate, have you looked up for your certificate? I have a cousin named Tegan. She did not. I mean, Joyce will kill me later, but she'll be all right. A lot of times they put a lot of pressure on Tegan to go to college. And I would talk to Tegan and I'm like, well, what's your plan? She was like, I want to have multiple salons. She was like, and I'm like, hair is a billion dollar product. So I'm like, all right, cool. School may not be for you, but as long as you're doing something. Now she has her own hair studio and is her own licensed cosmetologist.
Wow.
Now I'm not counting her pockets, but it's what she wants to do. But the fact of the matter is, if she wants to have multiple chains, that's something to set up. So I don't think you have to go to college. And I think America should look at how it's promoted, because the fact of the matter is, when you have certain politicians that are discrediting education, what are we saying? So I don't think education is the end all be all.
Absolutely. And I follow that because you mentioned the HVAC. I mean, mechanic, you go to get your oil change now, anything, everybody has to have a certificate in something. And in my
Mhm.
job, I where I work at, it's good if you have a degree if it's actually works for what you plan the job you're applying for. Because if I got
Right.
a job in communications and I'm working in agriculture, go figure. But I think certificates is a way to go now, because you can come to the job. In my opinion, you can come to the job ready to start work now.
I
And
agree.
just think about it. Back in the day, I can't. I was talking to somebody the other day. I just can't believe that you have Uber, somebody brings food to
Mhm.
your house, but somebody has to organize their schedule to see how that work. And so
Mhm.
and I think success is based on, like you said, based on what you want to do in your life. That's what you need the tools to be your successful level, whether it's
Mhm.
whatever. But I just want to know that because I know you get to meet a lot of people in the university, you taught adults and college age students. So I was just interested.
Mhm.
All right. All right. Good deal. Good deal. All right. So now you got to pay attention to this right here because I did my research. So let's see if you really on your game right here.
Okay.
In order to accomplish the fraternity's objectives, it is essential that systems are instituted that effectively embody culture for service and service for humanity and promote brotherhood, scholarship, and service. Now, my question to
Okay.
you is, how do you model and support this vision on a day-to-day basis?
Mhm. Shout out to the brothers of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. You go about it by actually being. We live by rules such as like dignity and simplicity, loving the work that you do, time value. So I think like making sure that you're doing everything that you could do within your work atmosphere, whether faith is definitely important to me, making sure you're doing things around your community, just being and not being a talker, actually being for service, actually uplifting people, actually helping people that may not look, sound, or talk like you. And then embodying what you say you're going to set out to do. If you hate your job, which I've been there before, you have to do it to the best of your ability and help those, because if not, you're not being of service. And culture for service, service for humanity, that means a lot because being of service to somebody is a culture and it's a mindset, and
Absolutely.
it can rub off on people in the community. So I would say I embrace it by actually doing my work, being outside of my actual comfort zone, like so not depending on all your service to come from work because that's easy. The service that's difficult is helping somebody when you done got off of a 10-hour shift and you really don't want to help them. That's another
Absolutely.
aspect of service, giving back to the community, whether it's giving back to kids, mentoring through Sigma Beta Club, like, or even doing stuff outside of the organization. That's what it means to be of service.
Well said, well said. And I follow that, man, because and I tell people this all the time. I do a lot of speaking on leadership, and that's one of the things
Hmm.
I tell people. You have to be a servant before you can be a leader. And for
Absolutely.
effective leader, you have to be able to make sacrifices. And you just gave a perfect example. You don't work that 10-hour shift, you're tired, but somebody needs your help.
Hmm.
Because we can talk about how great we are and this. People go by what you do. And that's how they feel about what they see you do to them. So that's good stuff right there. All right. All right. Now we've all had those days. I know I have them sometimes. I'm just an energetic person. I try to be, but some days it's like, man, it's gonna be one of them days. So when you have one of those days when you're not feeling it, how do you maintain that discipline to keep putting in that work to reach your objectives and goals that you've set for yourself? When you feel in those days, it's like, man, but how do you just keep that self-discipline, which is that consistency to keep going towards your goals and objectives?
Sometimes I still struggle with that. Especially when it comes to the gym. I can be on fire for 2 weeks. I miss that one day and it turns into a month.
Okay.
Or like a perfect example, I mean that's a good example too, but when it comes to sports writing, I've been doing this since 2017 and I haven't necessarily hit my big break yet, but I just keep trying to plug at it little by little and just being okay with okay, I have to reset because it's just not my time, but then realizing the bigger picture is not about how you get it's not about when you get there, it's about how you get there and embracing the journey because that'll lead you and it'll build you up for a better time. So what I do is even I take the small successes. Even if I mess up and I don't write for a month, that means next time I gotta plan it out. Whether I'm writing once a week, twice a week, or I'm just sharpening my skills. So I'm doing something that's still in that sphere. But when I don't feel like it, I just have to get through my mental on that because I'm not gonna lie, there was one time this week where I was like, I just wrote like 7 or 8. I'm tired. But then I was like, you know what, I got to keep going because even when you don't feel like doing it, consistency is what's going to help you get through it. So to be honest, just something to the table and just submitting something. Sometimes it may not look the way you want, but then those are the projects that kind of help. So that's what I try to do.
Okay. And I follow that because I tell people all the time, you can set goals, but like you just gave a perfect example. Sometimes, all right, I'm not feeling that goal today, but objectives, or I like objectives and goals because I can have a strategic plan. And strategic plan can change from day to day because
Mm-hmm.
A ain't working. Let me go to B. B ain't working. We got to adjust that or go back to A. So I definitely follow that. All right, good deal. All right. Now we call this the 1090 podcast because we believe that 10% of things in life is going to happen to us.
Right.
90% is how we decide we're going to deal with it. And I always say you can deal with it up, down, east, or west.
Right.
So that's what the purpose of the 1090 podcast is. Can you tell me about a moment in your life when you had that 10% and how you dealt with that 90 and how it impacted your life?
Mm. I would say just with like deadlines, like there was a time where I was going through the education modules to join Sigma and I was recruiting while we were required to have record numbers, and then we had projects within projects, and it was frustrating, but there was a time where I had to I didn't have much to give, but I would outline, I would delegate, but then I would make sure that I had my part done and communicate and then basically be proactive. Like, so when I had to travel, I knew I would knock this fair out and then I wouldn't schedule something until it fell around all the other obligations, but still relying on the teammates, not trying to do everything yourself, and then establishing clear communication and outlines. Sometimes we try to be Superman or Superwoman and do it all ourselves, but you can't, and you have to delegate. So that would last spring would definitely be one example when I was, as they call online for the process, working at a high level in recruitment, being the associate director in over recruitment, and then having projects within projects, just spacing it out and then delegating and then outlining it so it looks good on paper, or so it is on paper, and you can kind of work from that.
Okay. All right, good deal. All right, so here's the magic question. Please tell us, because I'm just gonna tell you about me. Look, I love I play tennis. I
Hmm.
used to play basketball, I had two hip replacements, so the doctor said you can't jump. I had to let my 40 vertical go. Actually, it was like 28, but I had to let that go. So I buy a lot of tennis shoes, especially Aces, for to play tennis in because you know a tennis shoe has to have a hard surface on it because you're sliding on the floor all the time. That's so I spent $1 on those sneakers. But you
Hmm.
say you a sneaker fanatic, so how did that start and why? How did that start and why is that such a passion or purpose of yours?
It's funny. I would say it probably started in high school. Just seeing like what people would come to school with on the first day and seeing people with their fresh kicks. And then there was a few people that I hung out with, E-Man short for Emmanuel, Corey and all them. They used to always have sneakers for days. And it just be like, when you kind of talk about it and you see the origin, then you see the basketball culture, Allen Iverson, first one of the I think best Reebok shoes ever. So you kind of see it, and then it's integrated with hip hop. I'm very big on hip hop, not this new stuff, but the lyrical stuff. But when you see all the culture kind of collab, and then you see those sneakers, it's just a way of expression. Now I've calmed down from what I used to because when I was in college, I would legit have sneakers under my bed, in my closet, in my trunk chest. But then when you start to have to pay for them, and it kind of dwindles down a little bit. But then I started working for Foot Locker, but then I realized I'm like, man, I'm getting paid and I'm paying them right back. So it's kind of stopped. I mean, I still buy sneakers, don't get me wrong, but it's not as crazy. But it started in high school. But it's not just buying them all the time either. It's just like acknowledging the culture. Like I've written a few stories about sneakers or things like that. Um, Podcasting about them. Like it's just kind of expressing the culture within it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember, you probably don't remember, and but I remember when Michael Jordan came out with the first Nike.
Hmm.
And back then people was talking about rap is not good, it's causing people to rob
Hmm.
banks, kill people, things like this. But Nike was smart enough to say, hey, we're gonna focus on this black community.
Hmm.
Like you said, rap, Adidas was out, Run DMC was wearing different shoes, Pro Kids. Uh,
Hmm.
but Spike Lee played in there, and that in that commercial, that was the main artist they targeted. And look at what Michael Jordan is today with shoes. That just amazes me. That
Hmm.
you came from that to where it is now.
Yeah, you got to
So
shout out his mom because she orchestrated the sole proprietor deal. Basically that he gets a cut out of everything. His mom really forced that deal. Had his mom not said no to Adidas, I want to say they said no to Adidas, they said no to Converse
mhm.
because they tried to pitch Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. His
Look,
mom was like, he's gonna be better than both of them, which at that time probably sounded crazy to them, but now look,
mhm,
I wish he wouldn't have sold Charlotte, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, definitely Michael Jordan has changed the game.
mhm.
Um, and I think as expensive as Jordans are, that's not my favorite sneaker. And I think that's where people get. I don't think you're a true sneaker fanatic or sneakerhead, as we call it,
Right.
if all you do is Jordans. Like there's other sneakers that are cool too. Like when you think of the gel lights, when you think of SB Dunks, when you think of um anything, it can range from foam posits, it can range from anything. I think sometimes people kind of get caught up in just Jordans, but it's so much more than that. But you do have to shout him out because he did change the game.
Yeah, that amazes me. I see people cutting grass in Jordans. I'm like, all the money you pay for and these are new Jordans.
Hmm.
It's like it's a what you call it? It's like it's a status quo to have Jordan, not understanding the history of anything. Because, like you said, Michael Jordan, he wanted Adidas. That's what he wanted. Uh,
Hmm.
but I'm not that. I can remember times, when I go in the store, I just look at the shoe. Why would I buy one pair of shoes? I can buy five. But
That's true too.
people gonna buy this, like you say, people gonna buy the shoes they like. But that's a good deal. I just want to know the answer to that question. That's a good deal. All right, now you're 32 years old.
Hmm.
You got a nice job now. I mean, but tell us how you started with that job you had with what was it? With the little hat you had on back in the day.
Six
Six Flags.
Flags.
Tell me,
Ah.
give me a short, give me a short transition from the job, your first job to your job you now. Just to show people you don't start out as a social director of anything. You have to sometimes, like me, I started working at Hardest for $3.35 wearing
Mm,
polyester pants and a hat that said Hardest and the pants was too short. But give people an idea because people get in their head that okay, if I work at McDonald's, this is all I'm gonna ever be able to do. No, but I just
not
want you
at
to
all.
short travel through time to where you're at now with the jobs you've had.
Mm, um, so my first job ever, I'm gonna try to go really quick. My first job ever was actually they called it a pool gate attendant. So I'm
Oh
not gonna lie
yeah.
to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. And I don't care. You got to be transparent. This might touch somebody and make them laugh at the same time. I actually wanted to be a lifeguard, but I failed that swimming test so bad. Like the water, the current, it was just like if I felt like I was in a beach somewhere and the currents just kept slapping me. But I failed that water test. So they were like, "Oh, you could also be a pool gate guard." So I'm like, "All right, cool." So I would just legit just sit up there, check everybody's ID, make sure they have one. I got to swim on my breaks. When they order pizza, it was cool. Then after that, I don't think I had anything until. Ooh, hold on, let me think. Okay, yeah. Then my next job, I'll never forget my friend Kiera Sizemore. After my freshman year at Morgan, she was like, Zach, she was telling me I gotta go to there's job interviews at Six Flags, and I'm like, Six Flags in America? She's like, yeah. I'm like, where? She's like, PG, and I'm like, that's an hour from my mom's house, because
Uh,
we definitely went there. So I go there, I have an interview. I didn't think I was gonna get it, and I got it. So I was like, they were like, what would you like to do? I was like, ride attendance. So I started off I want to say I started off at Thomastown, which was like the little kid park. I don't know if it's still there, but then I just kept asking. His name was Alex. I'll never forget. And I kept asking Alex, I'm like, look, I want to be I want to work on Joker's Jinx, Superman, Batman. He's like, hold on. So we had to stay extra to train. So I just kept training on
okay.
it. I became that. I did Joker's Jinx. I used to do little impersonations and stuff like that until they was like told us we were doing too much, and then they put the automatic box in, which was boring anyway. Neither here nor there. Then after that, I worked at Walmart as a photo attendant in Frederick during the summer after my sophomore year in college because I left Six Flags. Then I transferred back to Baltimore my junior and my senior year. I worked at Walmart, and it was crazy because in Frederick I was a photo lab tech. So I would do the photos, print them, cut them, make sure that they're ready, change the print, all that stuff, canvas. So when I first got to the one in Walmart, it took forever, but I had to keep being persistent because I needed a job because I took my car and my mom was like, you have to have a job before I let you take this car to college so you can put gas in it. So I just was in there every day bothering them. Her name was Miss Sandra. I never forget it. And she's, you know how some you keep calling people and they get frustrated, like, all right, Zach, you just talk. But I just kept, hey, Miss Sandra, I know I did. I think she admired that. So one day I finally got in there. They're like, look, we don't got no photo tech labs. Would you mind being a greeter at the door? I said, I will be a greeter at the door. And now, granted, I was over it the first day because you had to stand up and they didn't have the chairs like they do now. But I met this dude named Claude. He was an Atlanta Falcons fan. Bless his heart. He was like, Zach, I looked at your resume because he noticed. He was like, man, you always in a good mood. I was like, man, I got a job. I go to college. This ain't, for me, I knew Walmart wasn't the end all be all. And there's nothing wrong with people that work at Walmart. There's nothing wrong with people that work at McDonald's that are none of that. But my challenge to everybody is, all right, well, what's the top of the chain that you can get at that job, or what can lead you to ownership or your own business? But we'll get back to that. But then after that, Claude was like, man, you always, and I looked at your resume and I noticed you were a photo tech. The person that's in photo, I think they either were pregnant or they got fired. I don't remember the one. So forgive me if I'm not telling the right thing. But he got me back up to photo lab.
Wow.
So then after that, I'm not gonna lie. I start, I think probably my sophomore year, I'm still working there. Then I get mono, and then it was Thanksgiving, I'll never forget. And then I took off, but Claude looked out. So then after that, I'm going online for Alpha Nu Omega. Shout out to the good brothers of Alpha Nu Omega Fraternity Incorporated. So then I'm online for that. And so I'm like, Claude, look, I'm going through a fraternal process. He said, it's fine. He was like, just tell me what you can, you can't do. So then after that, it's my senior year. The thing where I made a mistake is I didn't do any internships. I was a history major, so I was like, I don't want to work at a museum. I don't want to work at a library. If you are in college, do not skip out on internships. That's your free work before you start getting paid.
Absolutely.
Had I did internships, who knows, my career could have looked different, but I also got a lot of my customer service skills from the jobs that I work. So I don't regret anything. God works it out the way that he wants it to work out. So then after that, my senior year, I graduate. I think I tried to get a job at Walmart in Germantown, Maryland, but you remember that Germantown? I was like, I'm not working there. Absolutely not. So then I ended up working at T-Mobile through a third party company. Didn't really like that. So then I applied for Foot Locker while I'm in my grad program. I love Foot Locker. It's just, unfortunately, the pay structure is a little weird. So I'm like, this is only temporary. So then after I finished my first year of grad school, I started like, okay, I didn't necessarily know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do sports journalism, but I didn't know how to go about that. And I felt like too much time and kind of went past and I had no experience. So then I applied for it. I applied at UMUC, it used to be the University of Maryland University College. Now it's University of Maryland Global Campus. So I applied in. I had my suit. I interviewed. It was like Red Robin interviews. It was like real quick. So I didn't think I got it. So I kept working at Foot Locker, and I just felt like I wasn't thriving, or I didn't feel like I was where I needed to be. And then plus, I needed more money in my pocket, So I lie to you not. I prayed about it because one thing I will say that I also credit Morgan to. I got closer to God at Morgan too, and within my fraternity of Alpha Nu Omega. But I want to say it was like one day I was like, look, I'm quitting. I can't do Foot Locker no more. I don't encourage this on anybody. This is just where I was at. I was like, I'm quitting. I said a prayer. I said, God, I know you'll do da, 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 da. I forgot what prayer I said. I lied to you. Now I'm pulling up to Foot Locker to give them my 2-week notice. And the lady from UMUC calls me. She said, hello, Zach. Is this Zachary? I'm like, yes. They're like, this is such and such from UMC. Do you have a minute? I said, absolutely. So then she says, I just want to let you know if you're still interested, we would like to hire you. And I'm like,
Wow.
oh, wow. So I'm lying. I'm going in to get my 2 weeks notice. And then she calls me and she tells me I have the job. She's like, can you start? I think it was August 11th. And that was legit 2 weeks from that day. So it was funny. That worked out. So then I'm at UMUC and I'm learning. Everybody's like, oh, Zach is a hard worker. We had the trainings, the modules. And I'm not gonna lie, not to say that I was complaining, because oftentimes if I want to do better, if I want to better myself, that doesn't mean I'm complaining. That means I have a goal that I want to set. Now, what you do in between that to get to that, I think that's where it's complaining or not. But I knew when I got there, I'm like, all right, this is cool for a good 2 to 3 years, but then I want to go into the traditional, because the thing about schools like UMUC and UM Strayer, which I'm grateful for because they both helped me get into those specific veins, but those are for profit, and it's more so, obviously everything's about the money, but that is specifically about this because it's all online with a few hints of like in person. So I'm soaking up the game. I'm learning everything that I can. And then I think March, 2 years later, I applied for Morgan State. I applied for this job. Shout out to Danny. He helped me with the application. Now I applied in November. I ain't hear from Morgan until February, March, but I had got the job. So then I'm like, all right, I'm going back to Morgan. So then I advised at Morgan. I then got the job as an academic career and advising specialist. So pretty much I help seniors for clearance for graduation, advising seniors. It kind of fluctuated between sophomores and juniors later on. I had to host an alumni brunch. I had to host Dean's List ceremony. And then I had to help students find internships. And God is good because it's funny. Mind you, 2013, I'm taking journalism electives because I'm like, I want to be a sports writer. Professor Ken's like, you could if you really work at it. So in 2017, I'm helping these I became the academic advisor for the School of Global Journalism and Communication. So 2017, I'm helping these students apply to get jobs. And then I'm seeing some of these sports journalism jobs. I'm like, let me apply to this one myself. So then I get the job at the Sports Junkies. I write there for like a good year or so. Then they kind of split because of internal beef. And then I intern at Pro Sports Notes. Shout out to Greg Kennedy. And he's the first person where I got to cover the Eagles. I got my credential, my badge. Mind you, I'm still working at Morgan, but I used my resource to get me to where I wanted to go. And then I think obviously God set that up. So then I do that job at Morgan for about a good 2 years. And then I taught for a year. I taught at 4 colleges. I taught at Coppin State. I taught at Strayer. I taught at Stevenson. I think it was 3. No, I'm missing one. But anyway, I taught with those 3 schools, and literally I would just drive up and down 695 to
Oh,
teach
you taught
those.
at the same time? Taught them at the same time?
Like if I'm not mistaken, Coppin was Tuesday and Thursday, and then Strayer was like Monday, Wednesday, and
Wow.
Friday. So it was like that.
Wow.
So, but that I'm not gonna lie to you, I was making good money for especially that time and during for my age at that. But I think the thing that resonated with me, and I'm not saying you should never let anybody run you off of a job, but your piece
Right.
is important at the end of the day, and especially for Black and brown men.
Absolutely.
Stress, heart disease, cardiovascular, all that is the number one top 5 killer of us. So I was like, I refuse. I have to be in a sense of peace. Now, granted, when I was teaching, I was able to pay rent and I was able to, make sure I have food, but it was tight. But at the same time, that was the most peace I've ever had. My relationship with God was good. I mean, it's always good because he's just that guy. But like that was at the most peace that I've had, and I got to work on my writing more, and then I had started getting featured on the Bleacher Report. Now the money still wasn't there, but I was getting the experience that I needed, and I also got to cover the Washington Mystics.
Right.
So then after that, I go into admissions for a year, and then COVID hits, and I leave admissions, and I teach for 6th graders virtually. I leave there and I go to Delaware. Yeah, I leave there and then I go to Delaware State because being a virtual teacher was kind of hard. And a first year teacher with all those expectations. Had I been in person, I'd probably still be teaching there now because I loved it, but it was too much virtually and the expectations. Right. So then I was like, but I also miss admissions. So that's how I ended up in Delaware. I was an admissions counselor, so I'm making 55 at Baltimore City. I take a pay cut to come to Delaware, and people are like, you're crazy. And I'm like, I'm just gonna bet on me. And I believed in God, and I just knew he gonna provide. He gonna figure it out as long as I put the work in. So I work at Del State. Probably I'm still here, but I work as an admissions counselor. I want to say I worked there for 2 years, and then I got promoted to associate director. Then last November, and that's my fault, I didn't really provide that. Last November, I left admissions as an associate director. I did a year, but I kind of wanted to get to the point where I'm more day to day with the students. And then also, I'm still looking to somehow get over to sports journalism full time. But I'm like, all right, let's do campus events, which is where I'm the director of campus events now. And I still write on the side. I always tell people get what you can out of your own experiences. And then we're going to the MEAC next week, and I got media credentials to cover the MEACs for sports. So I used my job again to get a resource. So now I'm here. So like I didn't just jump to a director. I always joke with my students that I taught at Strayer. You can look at my resume and you take a good laugh because I don't even know how I got here. I definitely had no intentions of being in education. I don't even know how it happened. I just kind of fell into it. But I always tell people, look at my resume when students are like, oh my God, you don't understand. Oh no, I understand. I understand. You try working in Baltimore in the photo lab with I love my Baltimore people, but they get a little crazy. You try working in the photo lab and tell somebody that their maternal pictures ain't ready and get cussed out. You have so much patience in the world.
Absolutely. Wow, man, and that's for the main thing I heard from that journey, because number one, customer service, because customer service, like you say, when you got the angry customer, you got the happy customer, when you got the interesting customer, you still have to be that professional. And the second thing I heard that I noticed was all the networking you did with and that shows that you are a positive person and can interact with people, because if people see that you're about business, they're going to give you these resources, these little bits of nuggets to help you. Hey, what about this? Or I know about this. So I like that customer service, the networking, and building those relationships. Because I tell people all the time, and this happened to me. I put in for a job 5 times, and I couldn't figure out why I didn't get the job. I'm the most qualified person. I'm training the person, but sometimes it's not about how good you are. It's about the relationship they have with the person they want. That doesn't from I don't let that take away from me, but it hurt your pride for a second, but you got to look at the picture. So I just like your journey. And when you do get that job in sports journal, it's going to happen. Just look at all the vast experience you're going to have from all these different journeys you've been on. Because God puts us, like I said, once again, He puts us in these seasons, and you just want to have this toolbox you can reach, or toolkit, and reach out for this tool right here. And I can tell you have a passion for people, and that's what I tell people all the time. I can't think of too many jobs that you're going to have that you don't have to deal with people in some type of way. That's an interesting journey. But I just trying to picture you working at Six Flags doing automation.
Oh, that was fun. That was one of my favorite jobs, because one, I do like interacting with people and seeing people have a great experience. And then you build a camaraderie. Like, people laugh when you're out there. I remember one time we had to work and it was 105 degrees.
Wow.
And they were about to close the park, but then money always
Exactly.
takes over. But that was one of the hottest days ever. But we all still had fun. It was kind of a family environment at Six Flags. Like, this, God forbid, this one guy named Randy, we used to have them neon green polos. He'd be like, "Good morning, sunshines," and we're like, "It's 6 o'clock in the morning, sir. Calm down, please." But no, Six Flags is one of my favorite jobs. I'll never it was one of my favorite jobs. Let me tell you something. If I need a little side gig again, I go back. It was fun.
Absolutely. All right, we're getting close to the end. We're getting close. It's been good. All right, so let's talk about you are owner Creative Perceptions. We've used your services. You provide good quality work. So tell us about Creative Perceptions.
Well, shout out to you, because you still do. You get on me about having ownership in business. And like you encourage me. Your encouragement is always weird. It's like, not your encouragement, but you motivate. You have a great ability to motivate people. Some people may take it the wrong way, but I always laugh, because I was like, "Oh, that's just his motivation." And I know it always comes from a good place, but you had always instilled that. And then also, we've talked about it. I've talked about it with my friends. You got to stop giving people all your abilities and your gifts for free, and then not give back to your basket, so to speak, or your toolbox, which you like to use. So Creative Perceptions, it kind of came from, I was doing photography since 2012, but I didn't really take it seriously until like later. But I'm a creative, and I think life is about perception. And then my name's spelled with a Z, so I don't think anybody would trademark that. So that's how I got Creative Perceptions.
Cool.
But I love social media management. I love photography. I love writing. I love podcasting. I love like media. So that's how it kind of came about. Yeah, that's how it kind of came about.
Yeah, and that stuff is hard, man, because like I say, I love to talk, but and I tell people all the time, when you have your business, you know your craft, and this is one of the things when I say community, I'm talking about people that are willing to help each other to grow the community and keep things within the community. Those that know what I'm talking about know what I'm talking about. Because right now in my mind, we have a lot of neighborhoods, we don't have a lot of communities.
That's
But
real.
I think, and I'm a firm believer in having. My father is 78 years old and can barely walk now, but he still got his business is cutting grass, and his people that work for him while he been out, they've been doing everything, because he done built that, but he didn't try to everybody. He never marketed, but he just treat people and provided a good service.
Right.
So I think it's us. We should always have a business. So what if it don't work out? At least you can say you tried, even if you have one client. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So, you're right. Why give your talents to somebody else where they tell you how much they're going to give you off of that and how long they want you to work. Because we'll go to a job and be loyal to that job and work 20 a day. Why won't you put that into your own business? Because my sons get on me about, Dad, you got all these ideas. You need to put plans into action. But I learned from that, you can't do it all by yourself. Like you said in the questions I asked, you can't do things by yourself. You got to have people to help you. All right, so what I have that requires a quick response is called 3 words or less. 3 words or less. So I give you a word and you describe that in 3 words or less. For example, if I say a car, I would say goes very fast. You describe whatever word I give you, you describe it in 3 words or less. All right, you ready?
Yes, sir.
Mother.
Nurturing.
Okay. Black men.
Got to do better.
Okay. The Houston Comets of 1997 to 2006. Let's check your sports journalism knowledge.
Dynasty. Never will happen again.
Absolutely. The team doesn't even exist anymore. All right. Once again, 10-9, we are all about passing on knowledge and experience hopefully that we can help someone to improve their lives or meet their needs. So, Zach, this is the last thing that I need you to tell me. Can you give us some words of wisdoms that you would like to leave us with? Some words of wisdom that you would like to leave us with.
This quote has definitely been ringing lately. A winner is only a loser who tried one more time.
Wow. Can you say that again?
A winner is only a loser that tried one more time.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you, Zach, for showing up and supporting the 1090 podcast. And to everybody else there, remember to live life, love life, and be a positive change agent. This is 1090 podcast signing out. Peace.
Yeah.
Let me start recording.